Released 25 years ago today, the world was introduced to Cher Horowitz, Dionne Marie Davenport, and Ty in the 1995 summer hit Clueless. As was the style of the time with films like Cruel Intentions and 10 Things I Hate About You being loose adaptations of The Taming of the Shrew and this French word, Clueless itself would be based off Jane Austen's Emma. Amy Heckerling, the movie's writer and director, would take the plot and characters of Emma and envision them in a contemporary setting, giving everyone and everything a makeover. The country village of Highbury would become Beverly Hills, and Emma would become Cher herself, and the film would be centered around her coming-of-age story. Cher begins the film clueless. Well-spoken and self-obsessed, she's extremely superficial, taking pleasure in shopping at the mall with her best friend Dionne, and fashion. Life couldn't be better, that is, until Cher gets a C in debates. But never one to accept defeat. We see Cher's smart and cunning nature for the first time, when she manipulates her teachers into a relationship with one another. The love-struck debate teacher senses now dulled. He revises his class's grades tremendously, and everyone applauds Cher as a hero. And we see something unexpected from Cher. She feels good having helped others. And since inadvertently helping other people made her feel good, she decides to take on a new project, and takes the new girl Ty under her wing when she normally wouldn't. Ty is a boyish girl, and she likes to draw. She wears baggy clothes, she eats whatever she likes, and is ill-spoken, cursing often. And being the new girl, she doesn't know how to fit into the new school, and she doesn't have any friends. So when chic and eloquent girls like Cher and Dionne notice her, and acknowledge her existence, it only makes sense that Ty is warm and receptive to their advances. She takes their advice to heart, going after the boys they pick for her, changing her wardrobe, and giving her a brand new personality. Even with the stark contrast with who she was and who she is now, Ty takes to her new persona very well. And after the school spreads a positive rumor about her, she quickly upstages Cher as the school's HBIC. Cher, however, doesn't like being supplanted as the queen bee, and along with failing her driving test and a heated argument with Ty,
"You're a virgin who can't drive."
Cher is feeling low and unsure of herself. Starting to reflect on herself, she becomes aware of her ignorance and cluelessness, and she sees that the person she made Ty into isn't a good person, who is basically the person Cher was up until a few moments ago. And her attempts to be a good Samaritan by helping Ty become refined was a massive failure. This causes Cher to reassess her priorities, and she matures, even if slightly, as a person. Contemplating her next move, she looks at Josh, the boy she has a crush on, and seeing his selfless nature, Cher sheds her superficial nature as her Bludgeon's Roman begins. She truly devotes herself to actual selfless causes and good deeds, donating her belongings and volunteering. And it is while helping others where she reconciles with Ty, who, on her own volition, apologizes for her own behavior, and she and Josh finally decide to pursue a relationship with one another. The movie ends at the wedding of the two teachers, where the girls are all fighting for the bouquet, with Cher overcoming them all to be the next bride-to-be, the future looking bright. While professional film critics are typically never keen on chick flicks and rom-coms, with some of the more prominent films of the genre like 13 Going on 30 having a 65%, Bring It On having a 65%, and, oh man, it's gonna hurt my heart to say this one, Jawbreakers having a 14% on Rotten Tomatoes. Clueless would defy the trend with it earning a respectable 81 on Rotten Tomatoes to date, and the film even grossed over $55 million on a budget of $12 million. And unlike Heathers before it and Mean Girls to Follow, which shows to portray the ravenous nature that is female infighting in high school, audiences clearly connected and enjoyed the film's themes of female friendship. It makes sense that even after all these years later, Clueless has much to stay relevant in popular culture, with movies, TV shows, and even music videos referencing the movie's witty dialogue and sense of fashion. This has also led to an explosion of Clueless merchandise, spin-offs, and adaptations. There have been several book adaptations of Clueless, retelling the plot of the movie, which released shortly after the film's release, as well as some other books written by Amy Heckerling about the lives of the cast to date, and how the movie impacted their lives as well as popular culture. After the success of the Heathers musical, there was a Clueless musical starring Dove Cameron, of all people. It was a jukebox musical with almost no original music, and its doors closed less than 3 months after opening. I couldn't tell if that was a bad thing or if it was intended to be a limited release, but it really feels like it was meant to cash on the teen girl movie to musical pipeline trend. There was also some video games, notable of which was the DS game, only because of the various other girly games that exist. I'm privy to the Victoria's DS game, that's just me. As well as a mobile game with a branching story mode made by episode. You know, those people that make those weird ads where you have to choose between staying with your cheating boyfriend or get back with him. There was even a Clueless TV show that ran for 3 seasons, wow. And it's all on YouTube if you're interested. When the time comes, I think I would like to cover Clueless in other forms of media, particularly the episode mobile game. Let me know if you would like to see an exploration of those in the comments down below, and like and subscribe and all that. With that being said, it's time to talk about the Clueless media that most interested me. Clueless Senior Year. Unlike most Clueless media, Senior Year is notable for continuing the story of the movie, as well as being a comic book. I talk about comic books a lot, by the way. Yes, there exists even Clueless comic books, 2 series in fact, with Senior Year being followed up by Clueless One Last Summer. Senior Year and One Last Summer was published by Boom Studios, formerly known as Kaboom Studios. Being a relatively new comic book publisher in comparison to Marvel and DC, they have been around for almost 20 years. While they did begin by publishing original works, and continue to do so to high praise with titles such as The Many Deaths of Lila Star, Something is Killing the Children, and The House of Slaughter, with Something is Killing the Children being the hottest comic in the industry since 2019, they would by and large become known for creating comic books for licensed properties such as Adventure Time, The Amazing World of Gumball, Steven Universe, just to name a few. Oh, and of course, Clueless. The series will be written by Emmy Benson, who played Tara on Buffy the Vampire Slayer and starred in some roles on Supernatural. I guess playing corpses on Supernatural doesn't pay the bills. As well as Sarah Kuhn, who writes her own series of Asian superheroes in Heroine Complex, as well as having written Shadow of the Batgirl for DC. Art will be handled by Shivan Keenan, an artist who works for Boom, having done some work for Adventure Time and has found other jobs being the main artist for Big Alpha Energy on webtoons and other licensed work. Her style is very girly-girlish and seems to have a fondness for drawing cute girls and cute things, which meshes well with the world of Clueless. The team seems to approach adapting the world of Clueless into comics with much care, with the writers Sarah and Amber having admitted to growing up with the movie. And being attached to it, all they wanted to do was do the time period, the characters, and Amy Heckerling justice, stating the following in an interview. For me, there's 2 main challenges. One was that I love both Heckerling and Austen so much as writers, I felt a lot of pressure. Like, can we even do them justice? But I think once we got into the groove of it and heard those familiar character voices in our heads, it just became pure joy. I mean, we're going to come up with new stories for Cher, Dionne, and Ty? How cool is that? The other challenge was that we wanted to make sure we were starting from where the film ended and taking into account all the character growth Cher and Co had gone through. We didn't want to just reset them to square one, so we'd have to constantly ask ourselves, where are they now? Definitely in a different place from the start of the movie. It's always a good sign to see writers approach a love franchise with poise and grace, all while having fun with it. Ready for the task ahead of them, they wrote Clueless Senior Year as a continuation of the movie, keeping in mind all the character growth that happened in the film. Released in August 2017, how will this Clueless Senior Year hold up as a follow-up to the classic teen movie? Opening the first page, we're greeted with musical accompaniment in the form of mixtapes which are found throughout the comic. It's a nice small little detail that grabs music from the 90s and early aughts, which is a detail I appreciated as music was very important to the film. And as we get into the plot, it would seem as if Josh and Cher are on the brakes, and she begins to tell us how and why that happened. It was the end of the school year and everyone was excited for summer. When they come back next year, they'll be seniors and one step closer to their futures. Excited to have her students find themselves, she tasks all of them with finding out who they are and what they want to be over the summer. But Cher doesn't know exactly what she wants to be or do yet. She tries on various outfits and identities, like a judge or a jock, but none of them feel like herself. Not knowing what to do, she decides to take on her boyfriend Josh's identity of an environmental activist. Only she's playing a part, deciding to do what she believes an activist would do, which for some reason involves wearing tree-hugging, bad-smelling perfume and camping out in seedy hotels. Clearly, her new self isn't working out, but instead of admitting defeat, she doubles down and makes things worse. At one of Josh's work functions, she effectively assaults Josh's boss, and they have a conversation that goes as well as you'd expect. Cher's new identity crisis is beginning to negatively affect Josh and his career, and while he tries to reassure her that she doesn't need to change herself, that they were good together as they were, that nothing was wrong with the person she was before, Cher instead doubles down as the situation becomes more tense. She avoids eye contact and instead locks her eyes on her list of things the new Cher does, which seems to overwhelm her. The once vibrant colors are washed out by a darker, bleaker aesthetic. Seeing how this new attitude is negatively affecting herself, and that even his support isn't getting through to her, Josh elects the two should spend some time apart, so that Cher can focus on herself and find out who she is, which ends chapter 1, Summer. I thought everything in this chapter was well done and set up the major premise of the comic very well. I like that senior year is about Cher and her friends finding themselves. She grew a lot as a person in the film, but she was far from living her best life. She was like, what, 17? She took the necessary steps to mature as a person, and senior year elects to show us the rest of her development, which can be messy. Cher doesn't yet know who she is, and instead of forging her own identity, She finds it hard and picks the first thing she sees, which of course doesn't go over very well because it's not her. Her breakup with Josh at this point in time may hurt, but it might also be what she needs to find herself. To break things up a bit, we jump perspectives over to Dionne, which is refreshing. Describing her list of wants, she ascribes to want nothing more at this time than getting her best friend Cher out of her flop era, which to popular vernacular of the time it takes to be called her funk period, apparently. This is when she is rudely interrupted by her boyfriend Murray, who announces he's running for class president as he calls her a woman, which she does not appreciate. Trying to cheer herself up, she tries talking to her friends about it, only to be dismissed by Cher, who's still too obsessed with herself to notice that her friend needs support, which seems to be the running issue in this chapter. Reluctant to run for president rather than let Murray take the spot, she runs against him, and once again, when she goes to Cher for support, she can't even seem to muster even an ounce of encouragement, only thinking about herself, and the girls argue over this, which leads to Dionne storming out of the house. She's very set that when she needs her friend's help, the Batman to her Robin. Wait, what? Cut the music. Cut the music! Listen, I know what you're trying to say, Sarah and Amber, and I'm not a fan. Dionne in the movie was written as a side character. Her whole existence was created to complement Cher and her journey. She was never a real character in her own right. What can you tell me about Dionne based on the movie alone that is unique to her? Unlike Cher, she has a boyfriend. And that's about it. Thanks for coming to my TED Talk, everyone. Thank you. Thank you. And while I can appreciate their attempt to give Dionne more agency in the story and characterization outside of Cher, did they really have to drag Robin into it? No, the answer is no. While yes, Robin was indeed written to complement Batman's character. He has 5 of them in his pocket after all. Robin, aka Dick Grayson, was always his unique character, and had been dealing with Batman's crap very early in his life. He was able to do everything Batman asked of him since 12 years old, backwards and in heels, from painting each of them gold and their hideout for no reason, to digging his own grave. Robin is extremely capable, and being stifled by an unfulfilling relationship that he was putting more effort into than he was getting out of. He eventually left Batman to lead his own team, adopt his own superhero identity in Nightwing, and became a hero to his own city. If they're aiming to say that Dionne needs to strike out on her own and do her own thing outside of Cher, that would be a good message since Dionne is doing her best to keep her friend afloat, but not receiving any support herself to pursue her dreams and desires. But that's not what they're trying to say exactly, is it? I understand that they're trying to say that Dionne is her own main character, when they say she should be more like Batman than Robin, but this is Robin slander and I will not stand for it. Anyway, Ty tells her to be her own Batman. This gives her the courage to stand by herself. In the final debate, she schools Murray and wins to the presidency, making up with Cher along the way, who realizes she was being a pill, and the second chapter ends. Overall, I thought the chapter was very good. In a world where black people often play props to the main white characters, Dionne was written to be support for the central character of Clueless, playing second fiddle to Cher in the movie. To the point where if you look up the black best friend on Google, her picture is literally the first one to show up. I'm not even kidding. So I truly appreciate being able to see the world through her eyes and hear her innermost thoughts. We are able to learn more about her, that while Cher is her best friend in the world, she doesn't appreciate being sidelined and will stand up for herself against Murray and Cher if need be. Good chapter. Chapter 3 begins from the perspective of Ty, finally, on the cups of winter break. She's seemingly distraught. She's received 2 letters, and after applying to college, she's gotten a scholarship to Cal Arts. SoCal Arts. And it's full tuition and room, as in free, gratis on the house for nothing, no charge, free? Oh, but her great aunt Eleanor has died, and she has to take care of her family's apple farm. So what is the poor Ty to do? I have a solution.
No one'll miss this thing.
Not knowing what to do, Cher and Dionne provide differing solutions. Cher, understanding that familial obligations is a tricky situation, leans more towards pursuing life on the farm, but Dionne, the right one by the way, says that she has a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to mingle with future Disney animators, and that she has to take the opportunity to live her life. Eventually, they all end up going to the farm, believing it would help Ty clear her mind and help her decide what to do. And getting there, they see, oh my gosh, it's the set of a horror film, an old abandoned farm. Seeing it in such a state, it would make sense to leave. I mean, look at it. I feel like Letterface is waiting to slice me up. But Ty seeing it running away feels like it's her obligation to restore it to its prior state. That's when they meet an old lady tending to the farm and its animals, who Ty introduces us as Edwina, her Aunt Eleanor's best friend. You know, gal pals. In the wake of Eleanor's death, Edwina took it to herself to restore the farm, as was always the plan before Eleanor fell ill. They were lovers who reconnected after many years of being separated by Eleanor's parents. And after her parents passed, they picked up where they left off and were able to spend 40 years together before Eleanor fell ill and passed. She doesn't mourn the time they lost together. Eleanor was someone who tried to do what was expected of her from her family, even at her own expense. But with Edwina, she was able to live the life she always wanted to, and oh, did you get it by now? Yeah, the choice Ty was supposed to make was the obvious one. Like, who in their right minds would pass an all-expenses-paid opportunity to learn and live in art college? After fixing up the place, Ty elects to go to school and to help out on the farm in between semesters, allowing Edwina to remain there as she considers her family, and as such, the farm stays within the family name. Awesome chapter. Ty was pretty unimportant and absent from the comic up to this point, so seeing her express a wide array of emotions from nostalgia to sadness to happiness and confusion makes up for her lack of presence up to this point, and her characterization seems in line for what we know from the movies, being boyish, chasing pigs on the farm, outspoken, and generally happy. Good vibes all around here. And finally, we return to the point of view of Cher. And what is she up to? Still confused over her identity and what to do with her future. And seeing how much it distresses her makes me realize something. This happens to everyone. Take it away, Daria.
Daria, what about your goal?
I don't have any.
Oh, come, Daria. You must have some goal.
My goal is not to wake up at 40 with the bitter realization that I've wasted my life in a job I hate because I was forced to decide on a career in my teens.
From a young age, everyone is under a lot of pressure to figure out who they are and what they want to do for a career. Some people have a great sense of self, and that's great, but everyone develops at different rates, and they won't always know what they want innately. You may find out what you want to do in your teens, but you could also do it in your 20s or your 30s, or you could even do it far after in life. It can take a lot of time and a lot of reflection, so being put on the spot in front of class and asking, who do you want to be? Of course, it causes a lot of stress and anxiety. But in describing how she failed to figure herself out, she seemingly realizes almost all of this instantly, and this returns her sense of self to her, and we get to see the Cher we fell in love with in the movie. She'd been disconnected from her sense of fashion, trying on different outfits that weren't her, doing things she didn't like, to find herself. She threw away her old self, and she's found it again, finally picking up possible jobs that actually fit herself, like a fashion designer or a supermodel, and whatnot. Reconnecting with who she was, Cher and her friends don the classiest dresses and get ready for the party. Dionne reconnects with Murray, and Josh, who was absent this whole comic, don't think I forgot about that, takes back Cher because she finally found her old self, the Cher he fell in love with, and the comic ends with a dance party! As a continuation of the film, Clueless Senior Year does pretty well picking up the story from where the movie left off. The 1995 film wrapped up everything pretty nicely, leaving no obvious branching off points. Where most Clueless media decides to retell what we loved, Senior Year dared to ask what happens after, and does so skillfully. At the end of the film, Cher throws away her selfish nature, and seeing Josh being so selfless, she decides in order to mature, she should do things he would normally would, where even her father comments on it.
Athletic equipment?
This is your influence, Josh?
He can recognize, however, that this isn't Cher, and Senior Year decides to see what Cher being not herself does to her, as she grows out of touch with who she was and is questioning her sense of self, which is compounded further when her teacher unintentionally packs on the pressure with a summer assignment. So Cher finding and reminding herself who she is like us remembering all that we liked about Cher and the world of Clueless. Senior Year also corrects the movie in some ways by giving Dionne more time to be herself and to develop her own thoughts and personality outside of Cher, even while other characters like Josh suffer from being completely absent. But this isn't about him, it's about Cher, her friends, and the bonds they have with each other. And that's why the first Clueless was so successful that we got video games, TV shows, musicals, and this comic. We're even supposed to get another Clueless TV show that's supposed to take inspiration from Riverdale type shows. The show being described as a Veronica Mars style show where Dionne is investigating Cher's mysterious death. It was supposed to be on Peacock, but after some rewrites, it's being restructured to be on Paramount Plus sometime in the near future, as of 2019. I'm interested in more Clueless media, and I feel like covering One Last Summer after making this video. If you're interested in seeing someone cover Clueless One Last Summer, which takes place the summer before the girls go to college and their separate ways, let me know down below by liking the video and subscribing to the channel. I typically talk about comics and other things, but I'm a gay guy, and I like a lot of girly things that I as a kid was never able to freely talk about. Since this is my channel and I'll talk about what I want, I may just get into these girly topics. Either way, I'll be here and I hope to see you in the next one. Megalomaniac64 signing off.